If you're insecurely attached, so have an avoidant, an anxious, or fearful avoidant attachment style, the big question is it possible to work through and transform an insecure attachment style and resolve toxic relationship dynamics and the symptoms of childhood trauma? I will give you the answer straight away. Our attachment style is not determined like, for example, our Myers-Briggs personality type, and therefore we have the ability to change and transform our attachment patterns in many areas. Usually, we need to go through those 4 stages that I will explain to you in detail in this video, and I will also introduce you to the 3 big skills you need to learn and nurture in order to transform insecure attachment and live healthier relationships. Let's get straight into it. Welcome to today's episode. My name is Robert, and this video is based on my own experience, research, and therapy work, because I'm not a healthcare professional myself. Instead, I share a client's perspective here on this channel, and for everyone who's looking for more in-depth resources for working through the symptoms of complex trauma, I also share the most significant learnings and practical exercises from years of therapy in our premium community and online courses you can get access today at understandable.net/join. And this video is the last episode in a 4 double-part series on attachment styles, so 8 videos, 2 on each attachment style. In the first 2 episodes, we already talked about 10 signs that you might have an avoidant attachment style and how to cope with that one. In the second double episode, we talked about 10 signs of an anxious attachment style and how to manage this one. In episode 5 and 6, we talked about 10 signs that you might have a fearful avoidant / disorganized attachment style and how to work through this. And then in the last episode, we got 10 signs of a secure attachment style. And now today, finally, in the 8th episode, we finish by diving into how to transform insecure attachment and try to reach secure attachment to live healthier relationships. To get a broader overview of all 4 attachment styles, I also recommend you watching our episode on complex trauma and the 4 attachment styles, and I will link all the videos of the whole series in every description of every episode in the first comment, and you also find them in the attachment style playlist here on this channel. I found a great blog article by Philippe Louis at exquisite.love who summarized the journey of transformation from insecure to secure attachment in the same way how I would describe it. I will link to you the full blog article and his website in the description below today's episode. In order to transform insecure attachment styles, we will need to go through 4 different stages, while stage 1 is the most insecure and stage 4 is a natural secure stage. After going through those 4 stages, we will talk about solutions and resources that we need to progress from one stage to the next one. And now this is an overview how the 4 steps may look like. So stage number 1 is the unconscious insecurity stage, while stage 2 is the conscious insecurity stage, stage 3, conscious security stage, and stage 4, as I said, the unconscious or natural security stage. Of course, these stages are just a concept, just a theory. So this concept is a try to explain human behavior in a hypercomplex world. And they are not perfect, of course, and the stages also can overlap. So it's a model, you got it. Let's talk through them one by one now. Stage number 1, the unconscious insecurity stage. If you're in this stage, then you are entirely run by your insecure, like anxious, avoidant, or fearful avoidant patterns. When you get triggered and you are in this stage, your coping mechanisms occur immediately and intensely, typically out of your own control, so there's also a sense of powerlessness present. You're at the mercy of your patterns and your own emotions. It might seem confusing to you to realize what's actually happening in a coping mechanism or a triggering situation, and you are not consciously aware of your triggers and mistakes, and therefore never change your behavior or patterns because it's never actually coming to your awareness. Your relationships and connections with other people are entirely based on your insecure patterns by trauma bonding or by codependency, for example, that I also talked about in this episode. We'll also link that in the description below. In that stage, you often feel easily irritated in your relationships and therefore get pushed out of your emotional balance easily and try to justify your insecure behavior. You're also mainly reactive in your relationships. So when something is happening to you, someone is triggering you, you are just reacting instead of controlling and naturally acting out of your security. You also didn't develop a sense for your needs yet, and therefore you are lacking in self-care, in resources and self-regulation, and the ability to ask for help, of course. You also run out of resources, so physical, emotional, and social resources pretty quickly. Usually you don't see yourself accountable for your reactions, so you blame others, for example, hold others responsible or accountable for your feelings and emotions. Stage number 2, the conscious insecurity stage. Now let's continue with that second one. In that second stage, you may have developed already at least awareness around your reactions and patterns. That's a good progress here. I have to say that probably most people who watch this are right now in this second yellow stage. And this stage may also last decades for some people, and it's also the hardest stage to overcome. In this stage, you may start to catch your insecure patterns occasionally, but your insecure attachment style is still dominating. You also might start to catch yourself sometimes when you're reacting out of your triggers and you have coping mechanisms that are present, and you begin to change your behavior slowly, sometimes in the opposite direction of your coping mechanisms and automated patterns. In a triggering situation, it might take you some time afterwards still to understand what was actually happening or why you were reacting in a certain way. There is still also a lot of toxic shame involved around your reactions and coping mechanisms. Toxic shame also a thing I talked about in this video, link that below as well. Another good thing in that stage, another progress step, is that you may also start to develop ideas for alternative behaviors that could be more healthy for your life and relationships. And you also start to understand that authentic friendships and relationships driven by mutuality and not just by learned patterns from childhood, how they actually look like. You start to realize how your missing awareness of self-care, of your needs and your boundaries creates a lot of dysregulation in your life. You also begin to understand what your resources are and how you'll run out of them and how you can use them to not get pushed out of your emotional balance so easily. It dawns you that you are the only person who can reliably do something about your own feelings and emotions. Also, you see that you have the power to change your relationships and your circumstances to the better. And then you progress to stage number 3, which is the conscious security. If you did overcome stage 2 at some point, you might enter stage 3. And in this stage, you become increasingly quick at identifying and managing your insecure patterns, your triggers, and your reactive behaviors. You now slowly develop the ability to recognize and also replace your coping mechanisms with genuine practices of self-care or by feeling comfortable to ask others for help and support, also maybe for co-regulation, so just giving a hug, which also calms you down. A good indicator that you are in this stage is that it takes you progressively less time to understand why you react a certain way. You learn from your mistakes and you adjust your behavior easily to the better. Behavior changes therefore come more easily and more natural to you. Also, gradually your feelings of shame begin to fade and you feel more like your authentic self. Your new behaviors and actions also start to genuinely enhance your self-esteem and skills, making you feel happier and creating healthier relationships after all. In this third stage, you keep building and prioritizing friendships and relationships that are based on honesty and mutual respect. These relationships definitely also help you to heal even more. You become more dependable and capable of resolving issues, especially in intimate relationships and triggering situations. You quickly understand what went wrong in certain situations. Self-care, acknowledgement of needs and setting boundaries becomes more important to you, and you have established a more consistent practice around that. Through nurturing your own resources more and more, your emotional stability becomes stronger, more dependable, and more resilient over time during this phase. And this way, you take responsibility for your own emotions and start to know when it's appropriate to apologize for how they affected others, for example in triggering situations or emotional outbursts. In this stage, you become increasingly capable of making adjustments to your environment and circumstances to prevent negative impacts on yourself and those around you, which is definitely a huge step on the path to secure attachment. Which brings you to stage number 4, unconscious or natural security. Well, once you've mastered the first 3 stages, you end up in this last stage, the natural secure stage. People with a secure and stable childhood and family home, they are naturally in this stage, that's for sure. Will everyone with an insecure attachment style make it to this 4th stage? To be fair, probably not. But I don't want to take hope away here for many of us, because for most of us with an avoidant, an anxious or a fearful avoidant attachment style, it's still possible to definitely achieve a lot of progress from the red to at least the yellow or even the green stage. For most insecurely attached people, they will probably end up in stage 3 if they work really, really hard on the patterns and reactions. Still, it's still possible that we can achieve the 4th stage even as an insecurely attached person. But whatever progress you're making throughout the month and the years you're working on yourself, it's still huge progress and something to be very proud of in the end. So what's typical for this 4th stage? Let's have a look. Now, first of all, you almost always recognize and manage your insecure patterns effectively as they arise. And this is the biggest checkbox for this stage. You might also practice a lot of self-care consistently and reach out for support when you need it. You communicate your needs and emotions clearly and naturally. You set boundaries and find compromises in your relationships without feeling resentful or guilty. You, in general, possess strong self-esteem and strong relationship skills. You are naturally surrounded by friendships and relationships that thrive on honesty and mutual respect, and everyone in your circle is highly aware of their own patterns and triggers and is working on themselves as well. You're dependable and resolve your issues promptly as they come up. Also, you have developed well-established self-care routines, have a ton of self-regulation tools available, and also support others effectively. Another huge sign for this 4th stage is if you may occasionally be thrown off balance emotionally or fall back into old patterns and triggers, your resilience is still strong and you bounce back quickly to a re-regulated state. Every now and then your emotions may get the better of you, but when that happens, you apologize effortlessly for their impact on others, and also you adjust your environment and circumstances as much as possible and adapt gracefully when things are beyond your control. Now, after talking about those 4 stages, the question is how to progress from one stage to the next one, right? So which skills do we need to learn and to nurture? Well, there are 3 big skills we need to master for that transformation, and these are the following: self-regulation, self-care, and self-resourcing. Let's talk through them one by one as well. Let's start with self-regulation here. If you have a lot of triggers and an insecure attachment style, what's happening is that your nervous system is often dysregulated. And therefore, a dysregulated nervous system means that you often act out of the flight, the fight, or the freeze response, according, for example, to polyvagal theory, which I explained in this video, link as well below. Now, re-regulating your central nervous system is therefore a huge skill to learn, And to do that, you need a bunch of resources and skills. Self-regulation is something the avoidant person, for example, does really well, but even for them, some additional skills won't be wrong. So where to get those skills? Well, lucky for you that I collected a ton of them through years of therapy, especially through some somatic approaches, and I share them with you in our full free workbook called the R3 Re-Regulation Resources, and you can download the free workbook below this episode, the second link in the description. There are 10 different categories full of resources and techniques, so pages and pages that I gathered from years of therapy myself. Just go to understandable.net/book, second link in the description. To self-regulate, you can also do some exercises, for example, creating a list of patterns and triggers and also of your qualities. If you want to try this exercise, you can firstly make a list of your insecure patterns and study them in depth. It's really important if you're not already aware of them, so for example, if you're in the red or the yellow stage, to do such an exercise. Also, don't overthink your patterns, but create an in-depth awareness for them, especially if it makes you feel uncomfortable to try to access those patterns and coping mechanisms. Also look up videos, for example, like this here on this channel, as well as articles on your specific maladaptive coping mechanisms, or look within yourself deeply for an answer as to why. Why do you do X, Y, Z? And react like this? For example, why are you always reacting irritated when someone communicates a boundary or a need? After that, what also helps is to write out all your good qualities. If you hardly can think about some good qualities about yourself because, for example, there is a lot of shame or there is self-hatred existent, look them up online or ask ChatGPT. We also have a video for 99 positive beliefs that might help you then. I will link that up here in the description below. And the exercise here is to write down examples for those good qualities as evidence to yourself, like I did in this video. You can create sentences here out of these good qualities, like I did in this episode. For example, I deserve to feel as seen, as understood, or as I make others feel. I am loved, I am worthy, I am caring to my loved ones. I am optimistic, adventurous, and people adore experiencing the world with me at their side. If self-doubt or shame still come up, remind yourself to those loudly. Let your list of positive qualities make you realize your inherent worth and cling to it. This is self-regulation and care for your inner child at its finest. Now, self-care. When we talk about self-care in the context of attachment wounds, we primarily talk about the communication of needs, of boundaries, and the acknowledgement of emotions. As many trauma survivors often don't even know and are not aware of these things, this can be definitely very tricky. And therefore, based on my years of therapy, I created a concept around that which can help you, especially as a childhood trauma survivor, to progress through those things. And this concept is my concept of the pyramid, which is basically a step-by-step plan that you can also follow along as well to work through attachment wounds and many trauma symptoms. And we always start with the fundamental stage, which is to stay connected with yourself and learn to re-regulate. And then we progress through those stages. So feeling and expressing your emotions, which is a huge skill, especially in self-care, communicating your needs, setting boundaries on level 4, and all that to just achieve trust and self-worth and build an authentic self, or get back to your authentic self. If you want to also follow this plan, you can join our online courses and the platform at understandable.net/join. Get access today, first link in the description. Another big part of self-care is also to support your body in an optimum health and energy. That's for sure. So not just learning to care for your mind, but also for your body, because we are one. This is a holistic thing. Now, the question you may ask to yourself here in terms of self-care is, what makes you personally feel good? What can you do to make you feel good? Definitely do more of that. Also, learn about nutrition, learn about communication, about attachment, connection, and get really good at meeting your needs and at getting support, for example, from others and helping, therefore, to get their needs met. And last but not least, self-resourcing. Resourcing simply means to seek outside support and ask other people for help. And this is something that especially avoidance and fearful avoidance often struggle with. But it's necessary when our internal toolbox isn't enough to meet any demands and challenges that life throwing at us, which especially happens within relationships. And we all know that avoidance typically, as well as fearful avoidance, don't really feel safe in their relationships. Self-resourcing could be simply emotional assistance, for example, in a difficult situation, or just getting a hug or a cuddle by someone, which is called co-regulation. That's basically self-resourcing. And to get this ability, as well as the connection to our authentic self, we again need the ability to express our emotions, get our needs met, and set our boundaries. That's absolutely key. Now, what do you think about this whole series? Where are you right now? In which stage? Definitely, I'm curious. Let me know in the comments below. And if you want to support the podcast, leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, subscribe to the channel, and I see and speak to you in the next episode. Have a great day.